this is one of those things of because and maybe I've watched too much of how the Guardians operate, where there are years where the Guardians are only interested in making upgrades if they just fall flat into their lap. And I think that's where the Cavs are. So maybe I'm informed by watching the summers of almost with the Cleveland Guardians. And by the way, it's not just the summer, sometimes the winters of almost for the Cleveland Guardians, that maybe that's informing some of my takes here. But yeah, if we get 2 or 3 more names into this, big names, and the Cavs are, oh, hey, they were in the mix, but there's no definitives. It's all of us gleaming from what this could be. Yeah, it'll tell me that the Cavs are trying really hard to let everyone know they're trying to, but maybe not pot committed to actually making these things happen.
See, but does it help you is the question I would have for you here, because the more and more you get linked up to bigger names. I mean, the guy in return in this is Darius Garland. So wouldn't you, isn't it just upsetting Darius the more and more? Like I think a perfect offseason for the Cavs would be if you were in 0 conversations and 0 whispers, if you really wanted to bring back Darius, that is, and then Darius could feel like, oh, I'm wanted here. Like they didn't do they're not trying to do me dirty in any sort of way. Like they do want me here.
I mean, I think you can go to Darius and say just the reality of, hey, we don't think there's anything out there. We want you here. If you hear things, just understand it's part of the nature of the NBA. I think it's a great point, by the way, because I haven't heard anyone on the station say, if you're Darius, and you got to add the context of Darius was a guy that wanted out a year ago.
Yeah.
So I think it's absolutely fair to ask. I actually do think the Cavs have great relationships with their players, and it's why they can do stuff like this without it blowing up in their face. To your credit, though, Darius might be the guy who doesn't play like that.
I wouldn't play with Darius that way. So maybe this ends up being one of those scenarios where Darius is like, oh, so wait, I was clearly involved in the KD discussion because I would have been the player that gets moved. Maybe I do need to find my way out. Maybe I'm not in this team's plans long term, and maybe then it accelerates a trade where then you get the 80 cents on the dollar for Darius.
So there's a part of me, and again, it's not my overwhelming takeaway. It's not my number one takeaway. It was just the first thing that I thought of. Oh, that's a pretty convenient thing to be linked to Kevin Durant, and then he goes elsewhere. If the Cavs were serious about this, and if the Suns were serious about entertaining the idea of trading Kevin Durant to Cleveland, I think it's really interesting that the Cavs would be willing to trade 1 to 2 years of Kevin Durant for Darius Garland, maybe the next 10 years of Darius, because I think it's absolutely where a lot of teams in the NBA are, and I am befuddled by it. There are teams acting like the world is ending tomorrow, so we're going to party hard tonight. And not preparing for what is the other side of this, and they're missing the ever-loving point. OKC has been the team that is always prepared for tomorrow better than anyone, and it has led to the perfect – they didn't win a championship with KD, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook. They won a championship by continuing to hone their team, drafting incredibly well, developing incredibly well, but they could have made the impetuous trade so much earlier and didn't. And because of that patience, that's why they won the championship. And you can say the same thing about the Indiana Pacers. Everyone's living for today, even Houston. Trading Jaylen Green for Kevin Durant in a macro world is stupid. You're trading 1 to 2 years from a guy who hasn't won a championship on his lonesome, or is the best player on a championship team that already wasn't a championship team, for a guy that probably has a 10-year run in him that's going to be real. I don't know it's going to be KD good. It could be Harden good. Green is really good.
He's good, but Şengün, Thompson, Durant, like you are an instant finals contender. Like you're a Western Conference Finals contender. That's where
win a championship. That's the part about this.
That's where they need to be. Like I don't know. I would do that deal if I was Houston 11 times out of 10. And if that means, and it didn't cost them Şengün in this process. It didn't cost them Thompson. Didn't cost them the guys that they really do covet and will be on this team. Like even if Durant flames out after 1 or 2 seasons and is just done, they still have between those 2 players enough to build around. Like, and that's the problem here. If the Cavs got rid of Garland, that's a different story than if they got rid of Mobley, let's say. If you get rid of Mobley, I don't know what your cornerstone is 3, 4, 5 years down the road. Mm-hmm. At least with the Rockets, you have that cornerstone that is set. So even if Durant does flame out, you're still fine.
To me, it's more. So I understand the economics of the trade, which you just put there. I just think there's a lot of short-term thinking going on in the NBA right now. And I think it's going to blow up. Because here's the thing. The KD trade only works if you win the NBA championship. but I think you're still behind OKC. I think if the Spurs get Giannis, which is a huge possibility at the moment, I think you'd be behind the Spurs with Wemby and Fox and Giannis.
I'd agree with that. If they got Giannis, I agree with that.
Maybe I'd feel more impressed if this was a trade in the Eastern Conference, where it does feel like the East is loosening up a little bit. But it's wild to watch teams throw away long-term, high ceiling assets who, by the way, are playing close to that ceiling already. And this is like the Donovan trade. If you continue to level up from the Donovan trade, it's one of the best trades you'll ever make. No, you know what? I'll take that back. It's a Kawhi trade. The Kawhi trade without the championship is not a great trade. It only exists as a great trade one time. Oh my God, I can't believe that happened, because Kawhi won a championship that 1 year he was there. That's where you are with Kevin Durant. And that margin for error is obscenely small, especially in the West.
I mean, I heard people earlier today suggesting basically if you get 2 playoff runs out of Kevin Durant, that it's considered a successful trade.
Playoff runs?
Yeah, playoff runs.
I think you're first round of the playoffs?
No, I'm not like that. Like deep playoff runs is, I think, the insinuation there. I don't think they're looking at it like it, and I'm not either. Like it has to be an NBA Finals championship, or all of a sudden let's put the trade in some context. Jaylen's good. He's not. Again, he's not Şengün, he's not Thompson, he's not any of those guys for this team. Like they'll still be fine even if Durant doesn't work out. But the idea that they added to what was a pretty good nucleus, I mean, they're in a good spot.
So if you let's say it's 2 back-to-back second round exits, but unlike the Cavs, they're actually competitive second rounds. It's worth it.
Not 2 second round exits. You make 1 Western Conference Finals appearance. I think for the Rockets and where they were, yeah, I think that was worth it.
NBA Finals, we crowned a new champion last night. Tyrese Halliburton popping his Achilles. Not great, Bob. I said this all very cavalierly. Like, it was really awful. Oh. Nobody enjoyed it. It kind of depressed all of us. And then the rest of the finals happened. But Cavs with KD to talk everything in between. We head out to the North Olmsted Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram hotline and welcome in Zach Harper of the Athletics NBA coverage. Zach, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
I'm a little too smooth with the Halliburton thing. That was really depressing last night.
That was real unaffected right there. Yeah. That was real unaffected. Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty detached from most things in real life.
Sure.
But
yeah, I get it. Yeah.
So before we do anything, it's interesting to watch people reacting to the latest round of parity in the NBA and yet another champion crowned. And I thought by 7 champions, I thought that we'd get to a point where people are like, oh, this is cool. I heard one too many takes over the last 24 hours that this is still bad for the NBA because we're so used to dynasties. I'm just sure, where are you with we don't have dynasties in the NBA right now?
Yeah, I mean, I hate parity personally, and I've hated it for a long time, mostly because I think dynasties are good. I think it's good when you have something to topple, right? Like I think we always talk about like, oh, things were so much better in the 80s and 90s. Well, yeah, we had the Celtics and the Lakers, we had the Bulls. Like we had those teams where you have this thing of like, wow, this is never going to get beaten, and then someone eventually figures out how to beat it, or it goes away, and now it's time for something to replace that. And I do think that's good for the league historically. The Thunder do have a chance to create a mini dynasty within this window before the second apron comes for them, because this is like, we can't deny, like, this is a hard cap. The league has created a hard cap without calling it a hard cap. But I do think that if the league was better at marketing itself, then the parity would be fine. But I don't think the league is good at marketing itself in this way. They keep trying to, when Adam Silver's asked about, hey, low ratings and all this stuff, he just starts like praising the NFL instead of selling his own league. Like I really think the NFL has a marketing I really think the NBA has a marketing problem when it comes to how they sell their league, because they're just focused on the NFL. And so I just believe that if you're going to do the whole parity thing, you have to make it have some weight to it instead of just feeling random. Maybe the Thunder changed that. But when you go into last night, we were supposed to get a great game, and we got a great game for 7 minutes. And then to the Pacers' credit, they put up a great fight for as long as they could, and they were leading at halftime, but inevitability hit because you just can't keep up with that Thunder team without your best player.
Zach, why is it you think that there are so many Achilles injuries right now?
Oh man, it's tough. I do think there is an issue with specialized training. I do think there's an issue with how players are year round and how they kind of overuse things. I don't think it's necessarily a load management issue as much as it's a training issue. Just from the people I've talked to and just kind of my whole guesswork with it. And also you get into players playing with calf strains, right? Like this is pretty consistent. When a player has a calf strain or a calf injury and they try to play through it, you get a lot more of these. Damian Lillard had a calf strain. There was no reason for him to try to push it. Like the Bucks weren't going to win anything this season. He tried to push it. It pops. We've seen that with Kevin Durant in 2019. We see it with Halliburton. Now with Halliburton, you're not going to tell him, hey, it's game 7 of the NBA Finals. Like, you got to sit this one out. I get it. Like, even if you tell him you have a 90% chance of popping your Achilles, I'm guessing he'll take that 10% chance of not doing it, and I don't think you blame him. But I do believe that this is just where we are with training and the body and calf injuries and everything, that if you have a calf injury and you're trying to overstep on these things, you're more likely to pop that Achilles.
So thinking back to the Cavs second round series, they were pretty much on their way to elimination when Donovan Mitchell came down with a calf injury. Darius had just come back. And at the time, I was freaking out because I remember Clay, I remember KD, I remember all the. Do we think that because of when the Halliburton injury happened, do you think this might, at least maybe not in game 7 of the NBA Finals, do you think this would be the clarion call to NBA players of, hey, it's the first round of the playoffs, don't play on that injury?
Man, it's a good question because I think it's tough to convince individuals that it's not going to happen to them, right? Because I think these guys are supremely confident. I think they feel like, invincible at times. I think they feel like warriors. I think there's all this supreme confidence that goes into it that makes them able to be as good as they are and as great physically as they are. So I think the players are always going to want to play, and especially when you get into, like, it's one thing to play through something in January. Now it kind of looks funny that Nico Harrison was so mad about Luka Doncic not coming back from a calf strain in January, right? Like it kind of makes sense now. But you look at the playoffs and the stakes of the playoffs. I get why that extra pressure is there for the players to want to come back. I don't know that you'll ever collectively convince players to not want to play through it. I think that you may, if you're the team, try to urge them not to. But again, there's a lot on the line with these situations, and not just for the team, but for the players as well.
Zach, how wide open is the East now?
Oh, I mean, could you convince yourself that we have a Pistons Magic conference finals next year? Like, I don't think it's that crazy to think about, right? And like, if I told you that a year ago, I think you'd slap me. Like, it just doesn't make sense to think about. But yeah, I mean, you could convince me a lot of teams that aren't that far along have a chance of making the conference finals. I mean, I think the Cavs maybe didn't feel great about the way that they were knocked out in the second round. They've got to feel really good about their situation now. The Magic, after the Desmond Bane trade, have to feel really good. The Pistons have to feel really good depending on what they do this offseason. I just think there's a lot, the Knicks, depending on what they do with their coaching situation, they have to feel really good about bouncing back. I mean, there's no clear cut, like, this is the giant of the East and you have to go through them. I mean, maybe that's Cleveland by default because they had such a great regular season, but they've still got stuff to prove in the postseason.
So one of the reactions to last night, and especially the Halliburton injury, was, well, the East is so wide open, you don't have to make a change to your core four now. So should the East looking wide open like you're talking about, should that impact how the Cavs proceed this offseason and how they attempt to alter this roster?
I mean, I differ with some people on this Cavs situation because I do think you've gone 3 straight postseasons, and look, you can make plenty of excuses and reasonable ones too. I'm not even saying they're cop-outs, like they're reasonable excuses of, like, you had an injury here, you had an injury there, but the main overarching theme has been there is something keeping this team from making it beyond the second round every single year. This year, to me, while there were injuries, to me it just seemed like guys were not prepared to take the shots that they needed to take. Like, that team just seemed rattled in those big situations where I did not expect them to be, because that's not the team we saw all season long. And maybe that is just bad luck, or maybe that is some kind of, just mental makeup that they couldn't get over in those big moments in the second round. But I think you have to look at the makeup of this team and just say, is this actually what works in the postseason? Is this combination actually what works? And it's kind of what we went into last offseason wondering about them. And then Kenny Atkinson came in and did such a phenomenal job that we kind of forgot about all that, and with good reason. Now, it might have just been a fluke that they got knocked out in the second round, but I do think Indiana exposed some issues of, you put some pressure on this team. Maybe those role players aren't ready to knock down shots. Maybe some of these guys aren't ready to step up in big moments. I think a lot of that can also be mitigated by Evan Mobley's going to get better, right? This isn't the best version of him that we're going to see. And I think these kind of lessons for someone that young are really good. But yeah, I don't think you can just go into next season saying, hey, the East is a lot weaker, we can just keep the status quo, because keeping the status quo hasn't exactly worked out.
All the reports suggested the Cavs were involved in the Kevin Durant, at least trade sweepstakes. Do you feel like if you're a Cavs fan and you hear that, that's a good thing because it means that they're trying to be proactive about shaking this up? Or do you feel like it's like, well, all right, everyone's involved in Kevin Durant. You didn't really do anything there.
I mean, I would be mad if they weren't, right? Like, I do think you have to kick the tires on any big situation like that. So no, I think that is a good thing. I would like to know how far along they were. If I'm a Cavs fan, just like, hey, they made a phone call. Like, anyone can make a phone call, right? Like, that doesn't really mean anything. Like, it's always this funny thing where you get a rumor of like, hey, this team talked to another team about trading Anthony Edwards. And it's like, yeah, if I call you and say, hey, I'd like to trade for Anthony Edwards, technically we talked about trading for Anthony Edwards. That doesn't mean anything, right? So I would like to know the depths of that if I'm a Cavs fan. But no, like, doing the due diligence is always good.
Is 1 to 2 years of Kevin Durant worth 5 to 7 years of Jaylen Green?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially, look, Jaylen Green's super talented, but he still has a lot to figure out. And we saw that as this team went through what they went through during the postseason, especially. Like, we saw the flash, right? We saw the flash where he was a monster in a couple moments of that series. And then there were times where you wondered, how is he even on the floor right now? And so harnessing that, I don't know that he was going to get the consistency in Houston with their identity and what they needed from him. I don't know that he was going to get that consistent role and those opportunities because they didn't really have time to, or really the opportunity to just let him go out there and iron that stuff out. They're almost too far along for that. The problem is I don't think he's going to get that in Phoenix either because they've got Bradley Beal and Devin Booker. So that's not exactly a good fit for Phoenix. But I do think Houston's in a situation where, because they have such a young core and the contract extensions aren't hitting yet, they still have a couple of years before they really get into that situation. Yeah, I think you bring in a veteran like Kevin Durant, you see if it boosts them into a higher tier in the Western Conference in terms of playoff success. You get them that playoff success, and then you start building from there once he's done.
Zach, incredible stuff as always, man. Appreciate you, and enjoy the offseason, which I guess in the NBA was about 2 days till the draft, and then we have free agency after that.
Yeah, maybe in a month. Maybe in a month I'll enjoy it. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Zach Harper there, the Athletics NBA coverage on the North Olmsted Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram hotline. I think he's in the right. Listen, I totally understand. If you look at the NBA odds right now would say, hey, they've got the best odds to be in the finals next year. Those are odds. You have to go back and look at how they've lost, why they've lost, and what's failed them. And at some point, you're going to let a golden opportunity to pass you by if you don't take control of your future if you're Kobe Altman and the Cavaliers.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I do think there is a segment of the fan base, if you decided to just not do anything and run it back, they'd be like, okay, I see what's happened with the East. I feel like you can do X, Y, and Z. Meanwhile, if you shake the snow globe like we're suggesting that you do, and then all of a sudden, I don't know, it's harder to get past Orlando, and it's harder to get past some of these other teams that are rising up. Like he said, Detroit in the Eastern Conference Finals, which is wild to think of. But all of a sudden, these teams take a step forward, Nick, and I feel like a lot of people then would be like, well, why did you mess with it? It was a good team. You had a good roster, and you didn't need to be an all-star team to win this East. But I just don't see it that way.
Yeah, the problem is revisionist history is if you don't win a championship, revisionist history will never favor you, right?
Right, yeah, for sure.
Like, we'll never really know if the Cavs don't trade Ron Harper. Could they have beaten the Bulls? Now, in that scenario, you replaced him with Danny Ferry. So I would suggest if you're going to trade Darius Garland, don't trade him for Danny Ferry.
Yeah. Okay.
Hot take, real, like whatever the iteration today of Danny Ferry is. But I mean, I think I just continue. I watch a team like Orlando, and listen, I think they missed the whole point of what they really needed. They needed somebody to create more offense, and they needed somebody that could step in and be a true offensive creator point guard. But
well, they needed shooting really badly, and
they did get
that's
that
what they got
Desmond.
with Payne. I mean, that was the point.
But like, okay, you saw somebody who might not have been your ultimate need, but he fit the second row down need, and he fit everything else you do. And four first rounders for that. Even if some of that's a tax on the KCP contract, guys, that's a lot to pay. It's also the thing you do if you think you have a real chance of taking that step forward. And I just think this is where we are. And listen, if the Cavs don't do it, if you're content with liking the Cavs, and if you're content with second round exits, okay, I won't fight you. Like if you just rather watch the guys that we like, that we've grown up or we've watched grow up in front of us, and honestly, 2 years from now, Darius and Evan can be your focal point. Donovan can be elsewhere, and you can uncomplicate this roster very quickly. If you want to take the long-term view on this, I totally get it. But if you run it back, the same thing that failed you guys, their offense is why they lost.
Well, but it's betting. It's not that. It's more betting on the idea that we're betting against other teams becoming worse.
Yeah.
Like it just, what kind of bet is that? That doesn't seem like anything that anybody sensibly would do.